You open an envelope for a new credit card with a $5,000 limit. You immediately spend $2,000 on a new couch. You have that exact cash sitting in your checking account. You plan to pay the whole thing off. You wait for the official bill to arrive in your email. The moment it hits your inbox, you pay the full balance. You pay absolutely zero interest. You are a perfectly responsible borrower, and yet 3 days later, your phone buzzes with a credit alert. Your score just dropped 25 points. You did everything exactly right, but the algorithm punished you anyway. This happens to thousands of smart people every single month. It happens because we fundamentally misunderstand one specific date on the calendar. That sudden score drop feels incredibly unfair. You acted responsibly. You didn't overspend. You played by the rules. But the financial system doesn't care about your good intentions. It only cares about the raw data it pulled on a random Tuesday. Today, we're looking at how banks actually take that snapshot of your money. Moving your payment by just 48 hours can fix this completely. It transforms a decent credit score into an exceptional one. You are watching Kyle Invests, where we try to outsmart the financial systems built to outsmart us. We are diving deep into credit utilization today. This is arguably the fastest lever you can pull to change your credit score. Building a long payment history takes years of patience. Hard inquiries take 2 full years to fall off your report completely. Waiting for those old marks to vanish feels totally exhausting. You feel trapped with a number that doesn't reflect your actual bank account. But utilization resets almost instantly if you know how to manage the data. We'll cover exactly when banks report your balance to the bureaus. You'll see why paying in full isn't the same as having a zero balance. We'll also cover the specific target percentages you need to hit for the algorithm. People spend years stressing over their credit score. They buy expensive monitoring subscriptions and panic over every swipe. You don't need to do any of that. You just need to understand the mechanics of the reporting cycle. When you control the reporting, you stop being a victim of bad timing. Parents train us from a young age that the due date matters most. In terms of not losing your own money, that is absolutely true. If you pay by the due date, you avoid terrible interest charges. But here is the major friction point for most normal borrowers. We wrongly assume that the big credit bureaus watch a live video feed. We think Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax see our checking accounts in real time. We assume paying off debt on the 15th makes us debt-free on the 16th. But that isn't how the plumbing of the financial system works at all. The credit scoring system is never a continuous movie. It is just a series of still photographs. And unfortunately for responsible people, the photographer takes the picture at the worst moment. They snap the photo right when your room is the absolute messiest. They take it days before you actually clean everything up and pay the bill. You look completely disorganized on paper. You are incredibly responsible in reality. That single bad photo ruins your overall profile for the entire month. You really need to visualize the actual timeline of a standard credit card cycle. Let's say your billing cycle runs from the 1st to the 30th. During those 30 days, you're swiping your card for groceries, gas, and dinner. Your balance climbs steadily higher every single week. On the 30th, the cycle finally closes. The bank generates a formal statement. This is that digital PDF bill you get in your email inbox. This exact moment is the statement closing date. The balance printed on that specific page is the number the bank sends out. It goes straight to the major credit bureaus. It gets hard-coded into your official credit report for that specific month. But your actual due date isn't until usually 25 days later. So you might have a heavy balance of $3,000 sitting there on the 30th. That $3,000 gets reported to the bureau immediately. It gets locked in even if you pay every single penny off later. You might empty your checking account on the 20th of the next month. The timing is completely disconnected from your real-world actions. The bureau sees high utilization, even though you paid perfectly on time. This creates a massive psychological disconnect for anyone trying to build wealth. You feel incredibly responsible because your checking account shows money leaving, but your credit report looks like you're maxing out your cards recklessly. Countless families are genuinely terrified of using their credit cards because of this. Every single time they make a big purchase, their score completely tanks. It drops even though they have the cash sitting right there. They naturally start thinking the whole system is rigged against them. They start believing that credit cards are inherently dangerous tools. It isn't that the system is broken or malicious, it is just heavily bureaucratic. The system is always lagging behind your actual life. It is constantly reporting yesterday's news to the people evaluating you today. You are living your financial life in real time. Your credit score is living on a 30-day delay. It relies on an outdated snapshot taken before you even made your payment. You have to bridge that gap yourself. If you don't control when that snapshot is taken, you give up all your power. You're letting the bank dictate your creditworthiness based on your worst day. The solution is something we call the statement date hack, though honestly, it's less of a hack and more of a simple timing adjustment. Instead of waiting for the bill to arrive and then paying it, you flip the script. You need to pay the bill before it ever officially generates. You want to pay down your balance 3 or 4 days before the closing date. If you do this, magic happens when the statement actually closes on the 30th. The bill generates showing a tiny balance of maybe $10. That $10 balance is the only number that gets sent to the bureaus. Suddenly, the snapshot shows you using almost none of your available credit. Then, on the actual due date, 3 weeks later, you just pay that remaining $10. You use the card normally all month long, but the public record shows you barely even touched your limit. You get all the rewards, you dodge all the damage. You might be sitting there wondering if this small detail actually moves the needle. Does it really matter if they report $1,000 or $10 as long as you pay it? You might assume the difference is just a point or two on your final score. If that is what you think, you're underestimating the algorithm significantly. Crossing the wrong utilization threshold can tank your score incredibly fast. It's the quickest way to ruin your credit short of completely missing a payment. We need to look at exactly how heavy this specific weight really is. Let's look closely at the standard FICO scoring pie chart. We know payment history is the biggest slice at 35%. That completely makes sense. Did you actually pay your bills? But the second biggest slice comes in at a massive 30% for amounts owed. This huge chunk is almost entirely driven by your current credit utilization ratio. Think about the gravity of that for a second. Nearly 1/3 of your entire financial reputation is based on a single variable. It solely depends on how much of your available credit you're using right now today. This utilization metric is weighted heavier than the entire length of your credit history. It's weighted heavier than having a good mix of different credit types like loans and cards. You could easily have a perfect 10-year track record of paying everything perfectly on time. But if you max out your cards for just one single month, everything changes. That 30% slice of the pie crumbles immediately and drags your score straight down. It's highly sensitive. It's incredibly volatile. The math here is simple division, but the real world impact is strictly tiered. Utilization is just your current balance divided by your total credit limit. If you owe $500 on a $1,000 card, you sit right at 50%. The scoring models generally hate seeing anything sitting above 30%. That 30% mark is the very first major cliff you can fall off. If you cross 30%, you look like a moderate risk to lenders. If you cross 50%, you suddenly look like a full-blown financial crisis. And if you max it out near 100%, your score basically goes into a total freefall. Here's the subtle nuance that catches so many smart people off guard. This penalty applies to both overall credit utilization and individual card utilization. You could have $50,000 in total available credit spread across 5 accounts. But if you have one single card with a $500 limit that gets maxed out, your score suffers. The algorithm flags that one maxed out account as a massive sign of distress. I call this situation the panic zone. Families with incredible 800 credit scores will drop into the 740s overnight. It happens just because they booked a vacation on a card with a really low limit. They didn't miss a payment. They didn't apply for a loan. They just let the utilization spike cross a hidden threshold on the wrong day. And if you want to understand more hidden rules that banks use to score your life, hit that subscribe button right now. It's genuinely the best return on investment for your time on this platform. The panic sets in because most people don't know why the drop happened. They check their app, they see the damage, they assume identity theft or a banking error ruined their life. The reality is just the cold math of the 30% weighting kicking in automatically. The system simply views high utilization as a very strong precursor to default. Historically, people who max out their credit cards are much more likely to go broke. So the score adjusts downward to reflect that new risk immediately. But here's the absolute best news you'll hear about your credit score today. Utilization has absolutely zero memory in the most common scoring models like FICO 8. This is totally unlike a missed payment, which haunts your public record for 7 long years. Utilization is what we call completely memoryless. As soon as a brand new balance is reported, the old one is forgotten forever. If you sat at 90% utilization in January and your score tanked, you aren't doomed. If you pay it down to 5% in February, your score will bounce back up instantly. It bounces back as if the 90% mistake never even happened. You aren't fixing a permanent scar, you are just correcting data. You can fix a massive utilization issue in 30 days or less. So logically, you might think the goal is to get your reported balance to zero everywhere. If low is good, zero must be perfect, right? You pay off every single card down to $0 before the statement date. You feel proud holding that clean record with no debt in sight, but when you check your credit report, your score actually drops a few points. It feels completely backwards. Why would a bank punish you for owing nothing? The algorithm looks at a constant $0 balance and assumes you simply put your cards in a drawer and stopped using them. To a scoring computer, zero activity looks almost the same as no credit history at all. The computer needs active data to measure how you handle open credit. This brings us to a strategy that credit insiders call all zero except one. If you have 4 cards, you let 3 of them report a solid $0 balance when their statements close. On the 4th card, you let a tiny balance post maybe $10 or $15. That single $10 bill tells the system you're actively buying things and managing debt without taking on real financial risk. You trigger the highest possible points in that amounts owed slice without putting a single dollar of your hard-earned savings on the line. You might worry that leaving $10 on a card forces you to pay interest to the credit card company. This is where almost everyone gets tripped up on card mechanics. Reporting a balance is completely different from carrying a balance month to month. When your statement closes on the 15th with a $10 balance, the card company prints that number on your bill. They send that exact $10 figure to the credit bureaus as your monthly snapshot. But your actual due date for that bill sits about 20 or 25 days in the future. As long as you pay that full $10 before the due date hits, you pay exactly $0 in interest charges. You never carry a balance into the next billing cycle, so no interest ever accrues. You get the credit score boost of showing active card usage, and you keep every penny of your money in your bank account. You're threading the needle right between the date the bank takes its picture and the date the bank asks for its money. It gives you all the benefits of a stellar credit profile without donating a single dime to bank profits. If you're applying for a home mortgage or a car loan next month, you want every single point the system can give you. In that situation, you want to follow the 1% rule strictly. You pay down your main card so it reports roughly 1% of its limit, while every other card reports $0. Top scoring profiles with 800 plus scores usually sit around 2% to 6% utilization across their accounts. They show the algorithm that they use credit, but only in tiny controlled amounts. But if you aren't applying for a major loan in the next 60 days, you don't need to stress over this level of detail every week. You don't need to micromanage every purchase down to the dollar during normal months. Just keeping your total balance under 10% or 20% naturally is more than enough to keep your score in a great range. You can live your life without constantly checking your banking app every afternoon. The key is knowing that you have this tool available in your back pocket whenever you need to polish your credit report for a big life moment. Most people rely on automatic payments to manage their credit cards every month. If you set your card to automatically pay the statement balance on the due date, you've already lost control of the reporting window. Automatic payments are built to prevent late fees. They are never built to boost your credit score. To take control, you need to turn off the autopilot and handle the timing yourself. First, you need to find the exact statement closing date for each card you carry. Banks hide this date deep in their mobile apps because they want you focusing entirely on the due date. To find it, open the app, go to your Statements tab, and download a PDF of a past monthly bill. Look for the phrase billing period or cycle end date. Write that date down on your kitchen calendar or set a monthly phone reminder for 2 days before that date. That 2-day window gives your bank transfer enough time to clear completely before the bank takes its monthly snapshot. Let's walk through a concrete example so you can see how this works in real life. Suppose you have a credit card with a $2,000 limit and your current balance sits at $600 on the 10th of the month. Your statement closing date is the 15th. On the 13th, when your phone reminder pops up, you log into your online banking account. You send a manual payment of $590 directly from your checking account. By the time the 15th arrives, your active balance drops down to just $10. When the bank creates your monthly PDF bill on the 15th, it records a total balance of $10 and a total limit of $2,000. That means your reported utilization for that card drops from 30% down to a tiny 0.5%. The credit bureau receives that 0.5% snapshot and rewards you with a score boost. Then, once the statement officially posts, you log back in any time before your due date 3 weeks later and pay off that final $10. You paid zero fees, zero interest, and you controlled the exact data point shown to the bureaus. You don't need to turn this simple timing trick into a full-time second job every single week. Managing 4 or 5 different credit cards down to the exact dollar every month gets exhausting fast. You don't need that kind of daily stress in your life. If you aren't planning to buy a home, apply for a car loan, or rent a new apartment in the next month or two, let your score move naturally. Keep your overall balances low, pay your bills on time, and let automatic payments do the heavy lifting during routine months. Your score might bounce up and down by 10 or 15 points throughout the year as your spending changes, and that is completely fine. The power of this strategy is knowing that the tool exists when you need it. Think of it like washing and detailing your car right before you try to sell it. You don't need a spotless vehicle every random Tuesday, but when it's time to show that car to a buyer, you want it shining. You pull this lever 30 to 60 days before applying for credit to get the absolute best rates available. A young guy named Jason tried to use this strategy on a small $500 card last year. He had plenty of cash, so he spent $500, paid it off 2 days later, spent another $500, and paid it off again. He did this 4 times in a single month, running $2,000 through a $500 limit. He thought the card company would love him for being such an active customer. Instead, the bank froze his account and shut the card down completely. What Jason did is called credit cycling. It happens when you spend up to your limit and pay it down multiple times within a single month. To a bank's security team, this pattern looks like money laundering. Banks set your credit limit based on the maximum risk they're willing to take on you over 30 days. When you push 4 times that volume through the account, you set off internal security alarms. You can pay early once a month to curate your balance, but you shouldn't use early payments to bypass your limit. If you find yourself constantly hitting your credit limit every 2 weeks, you need a different solution altogether. You don't need a complex payment routine, you need a credit limit increase. Call your card issuer or log into their app and request a higher line of credit. If you've been making payments on time for at least 6 months, banks are often happy to increase your line. A higher credit limit fixes your utilization percentage without changing your daily spending habits at all. Imagine you spend $1,000 a month on groceries and gas. On a card with a $2,000 limit, that $1,000 spend puts you at a high 50% utilization rate, which drags your score down. But if the bank raises your credit limit to $10,000, that exact same $1,000 spend drops your utilization down to a clean 10%. You don't have to jump through hoops or set calendar alerts every month. You get an automatic buffer that protects your credit score naturally while you keep spending the exact same way you always do. Most general purpose lenders still use scoring models that rely heavily on the most recently reported account information. The mortgage market is now transitioning to newer models. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac currently permit approved lenders to use either Classic FICO or Vantage Score 4.0, while implementation work for FICO 10 Trillion continues. FICO 10 Trillion uses trended data looking at balance and payment patterns over the previous 24 months. If someone routinely runs up high balances and only drops them at the last second, that longer pattern may matter under a trended model. However, the transition is still underway. So controlling the balance reported for the current month can still affect scores based primarily on the latest reported snapshot. While we're looking at protecting your available credit, there's another mistake you want to avoid. Never close your oldest unused credit cards just to clean up your wallet. When you close an old card with a $5,000 limit and zero balance, you wipe out $5,000 of available credit from your total profile. Your total debt stays the same, but your total available limit shrinks instantly. That causes your overall utilization percentage to jump higher overnight. Keep those old cards open, put a small $5 subscription on them, and set it to autopay. You can take complete control of your credit score by following 4 simple steps. First, stop looking at the due date as the only date on your calendar. Find your exact statement closing date on your monthly bill. Second, check your balances 2 or 3 days before that closing date hits. Third, pay your balance down early so your card reports a tiny 1% balance instead of a large debt. Finally, pay off that remaining small bill before the actual due date, so you pay 0 interest. The financial system is built on strict rules that most people never learn. When you master how data moves through these institutions, you stop letting timing control your options. Try this simple timing shift on your main credit card for just 1 billing cycle. Watch how your score reacts on your monitoring app when that clean snapshot posts. If you want more practical breakdowns that help you navigate these hidden financial rules, hit that subscribe button. You'll keep getting straightforward insights that put you back in the driver's seat of your money.